Welcome to the Battery Testing Mentor podcast about battery testing, battery validation, and battery safety. I'm Johannes, and I will guide you through this world of batteries. Also visit www.batterytestingmentor.com and sign up there for the email update, where I send the summaries of the episodes out straight into your inbox. Also, if you have any comments, wishes, ideas, just hit reply on that email and you can directly reach me. With that, we go into the continuation of our interview with theion. Last time we talked to Dr. Ulrich Aamir, the CEO of the company. This time we will dive more into the technical area, into the testing, and we'll have here in our kind of studio in the lab of theion Iqbal Waidha. He will tell us about how theion is testing, how they bring their idea from kind of the blackboard into the first cell. So now, after Ulrich, thank you very much for coming here, also joining me here in the podcast from theion. Do you want to give a short introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Aamir. I basically did my PhD here in Germany from Technical University of Darmstadt, and my focus of research was basically using spray pyrolysis as a tool of synthesis for synthesizing materials for various energy-related applications. And then after my PhD, I did a year of postdoc, which was kind of a collaborative project with, again, TU Darmstadt and University of Stuttgart. But I mainly worked at University of Stuttgart during this period, working with recycling of all solid-state batteries. And then, nearly 1.5 years back, I joined theion initially as a battery scientist, and currently I'm having the role of principal battery scientist.
And in this role, you are driving this development here forward, I guess, right?
Yes, I think we are really a small team, I would say. We have, let's say, management, engineering, and scientific team. And of course, I'm part of the scientific team, and all of us together more or less contribute towards the development of, let's say, direct or try to pave way for the future development of the lithium sulfur batteries.
Now, Ulrich explained in the last episode already about the specifics of the lithium sulfur battery here from theion. Now, when we go a little bit deeper into this, he said there are some challenges that you basically overcame related to just using sulfur, that sulfur shuttling he mentioned, for example. There are a lot of these challenges need to be overcome by, of course, developments, but then also by proving that this really works, right? I mean, as we are here in this battery testing podcast, we definitely need to talk about testing. And the question is, of course, how do you approach developing such a new chemistry? How do you validate that what you develop really works and makes sense?
So I think it's a good question. Yeah, the validation part right now is, I guess, really important, especially with respect to lithium sulfur technology. And since you mentioned polysulfide, which is one of the key reasons for capacity decay of lithium sulfur batteries. And we developed here our own novel method in order to limit this problem. And we will not go in deep with respect to the method, how we do it, but how do we validate it is quite simple. If you take a cathode, a sulfur-based cathode, which we have here, we do a simple charge discharge, or basically battery cycling, and see the capacity decay over a certain period of time. And if we look into the conventional literature, how people see this capacity decay, it's quite significant. And especially on pouch cell level, where I think not many people have reached 100 cycles. And although, despite on a coin cell or a Swagelok cell level reaching 1,000 cycles or so, but on the pouch cell level, you'd really see a significant degradation. And this is one important factor, how the cycle life improves as a blockade, such a polysulfide, and of course the utilization factor over a period of cycling. So you have a first let's say, a certain discharge capacity in the first cycle, and then you would also like to see how much discharge you have at a certain interval of time as a function of your cycling number. And if you have it, let's say, less than 0.01% per cycle, then I think it's an excellent way to basically determine, okay, you have some kind of control. But this is just from the electrochemical data, just as a rough estimate. One can also do a post-mortem analysis, open the cell, look at the cathode side, yeah, if you have material redistribution,
Yeah.
and also on the anode side, if you have this polysulfide basically reduction happening on the anode. Or one can also see, even on the cell level, the change in the impedance of the cell. But this is just a basic method or basic testing to see if you have such polysulfide dissolution. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this is very much focused on this kind of sulfur effects, I would call it. Now, do you have then different tests for the different materials that you use, or tests where you focus more on the cathode, or tests where you focus more on the anode?
Yes. So cathode is, of course, then with lithium metal, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's obviously for sulfur, but we also do our lithium metal host anode. And here we focus on symmetrical and asymmetrical cells. That means our host with lithium, if it's an asymmetrical cell. But if it's a symmetrical cell, then we have pre-lithiated host and pre-lithiated host here, and then we cycle between them. So it's then we just look into the, let's say, the stripping and plating potential, nucleation potential in case of the asymmetrical cell. But if we are then looking for a longer period of cycling over a certain duration, then we would of course look at the hysteresis potential and how stable this cycling is.
Yeah. So this is again kind of the cycling. So is it the case that you focus very much on kind of really doing the discharge testing to see the functionality right now in this early stage when you work with coin cells or the Schwarzschild cells that you mentioned? It's more about finding out the functionality and that it really works as you intended to work.
So here we can divide, let's say, our roadmap into two. Yeah? One is focusing on the development of lithium sulfur battery, and one we can segregate it into the development of our host anode. So as I mentioned, for host anode, we'll look into the asymmetrical and symmetrical cells. Also, we now started testing with commercial cathodes. And for the sulfur side, we of course have tested on coin cell, Schwarzschild coin cell, and as well as pouch cell level. So here on the anode side, or the host anode side, we again look at the cycle life and the stripping plating potential.
Yeah.
And how stable the cycling is in general. And on the sulfur side, then we look into the utilization factor, the cycle life, and also we do a post-mortem analysis to see what's happening on the anode side and how the material redistribution, if it is taking place on the cathode side.
Yeah. In these early phases, do you do also things like safety testing, like environmental testing to see how different temperatures affect the battery? Or is this something where you say, okay, let's first focus on the functionality and then later on we optimize for these other areas?
So at the moment we did not do extensive temperature dependent cycling, but we are, let's say, at least for the host anode, we did cycling on at two different temperatures, 25 and 30 degrees. It's not too much of a difference, but the idea being we just wanted to keep more or less a temperature constant. So we recently bought some temperature coupled chambers and started just to regulate the temperature, I would say, rather than having temperature fluctuations even before due to the seasons. So for example, with lithium metal host anode, we in some of the cells we reach 3000 cycles. So it's, I guess, around 4 to 5 months of more than 4 months of cycling, and I think we started during summer and we went into the autumn and winter period. So of course then we had to regulate the temperature. But of course, this is part of the roadmap that at some point within the next 6 months we have to do this temperature dependent cycling as well. To that, I must also add that we are developing in-house our own electrolyte. It's a quasi-solid state electrolyte. And once we have this component ready, then it makes more sense to do the testing as a function of temperature. But yeah, it's part of the roadmap.
Yeah. Maybe this brings me to another point, because Ulrich also said, oh yeah, we are investigating sodium as well instead of lithium. Like, if you now have these different branches, like of basically the same structure but with different ingredients, do you need to validate kind of everything from the beginning, or is there some kind of smart way to say, okay, we deduct because with lithium it worked well, so we can replace it with sodium and need to do only a little bit of testing, and then we know already that it's also working?
I think for every system you need to go from the scratch step. So if we look into lithium sulfur, then we know that the sulfur upon, let's say, discharge or lithiation of the sulfur, it tends to undergo volumetric fluctuations of around 80%.
Yeah.
And for sodium sulfur, it's around 150%. So that's a huge volume difference. So of course, then the whole idea basically needs to be adapted from one system to another. So therefore, the studies need to be then, let's say, optimized for that particular system. But of course, you get some idea from the one system. It's not necessarily transferable 1:1, but you get an idea, and based on your experience, then you can optimize the other system as well. But for now, of course, so our idea is lithium sulfur goes to the mobility and lithium sulfur goes to stationary. So, but yeah, this more or less needs a separate optimization.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of things to test.
Yes.
It's yeah. And now you also mentioned this development from coin cell to pouch cell. And I mean, I heard myself, like I tested mostly like from really larger cell level, but I was always told, okay, if you test on coin cell and you test on like 10 centimeter times 10 centimeter pouch cell, it can have completely different results. And it gives you a kind of indication based on the coin cell, but in the end you need to test again and see what comes out. And then basically the bigger format you go, the more reliable or repeatable it will be. But especially in the early phases, you can have completely different results. Would you say from your experience this is really the case?
I think yes, 100%. So in my opinion, what we are relatively quite a young company, yeah, and we already did some pouch cell testing, knowing that we know that there will be a significant difference from scaling up from the coin cell to the pouch cell, and because we started early. Yes, I think we started now a year back on pouch cell testing. We realized, especially because of lithium sulfur cells, that we have much higher degradation on the anode side, and we put the, let's say, scale up into the pouch cells. So therefore, that allowed us to basically look into the host anode development, so that we could already start thinking well ahead. And the result is today that we are at a stage where we more or less, on at least on the Swagelok cell and the coin cell level, have tested our host anode concept well beyond 3,000 cycles, at least internally.
Yeah.
And also at quite high current density of 5 milliamps per centimeter square. We also reached up to 70 milliamps per centimeter square for charging. But this was due to the scaling up part, yeah. So at least one side is now more or less, let's say on the anode side, we have a lot more experience, and we want to now again couple our, not only our sulfur cathode, but also the commercial state-of-art cathode together with our lithium metal host anode in a coin cell format, in a pouch cell format. So I guess yes, it has given us a different perspective. Definitely, the results were not 1:1.
Yeah.
And this is also what we expected. But what was important was that we started a bit early in order to, or let's say, to get an idea up ahead what future could hold for us.
Yeah. Now, another big point that like I was also told long time ago, like I said in the last episode already, like 10, 12, 14 years ago when I started, this lithium sulfur was always mentioned as this one game changer. And once when it will be there, you will have so much more energy density. But you have the problem with this sulfuric acid in case of like when really something goes wrong, I know the battery really starts burning, goes into a thermal runaway and so on. Like, is this also an really key concern for you, or do you say like with this kind of setup that you have, I think you're using the sulfur only in a bound form or so, that this is less of a topic and therefore you can kind of push the safety evaluation a bit out?
I don't think safety is will ever be pushed to the side, especially when you are talking about automotive sector.
Yes.
So and for lithium sulfur, since we are also using lithium metal, then of course the problem is more severe. So one has to look into the safety aspect as well. But I believe that there are always solutions. We were together in a conference as well.
Yes.
And we saw how many people are looking at the module level safety. And I think there are solutions out there which could basically address the safety part. But when it comes to the chemistry part, then there one can take some steps to take to put safety, let's say, give priority to safety as well. For example, the conventional state-of-art lithium sulfur batteries use ether-based electrolytes which have low flash points, low boiling points, and we let's say focusing on carbonate-based electrolytes, which of course are conventionally used within current lithium-ion batteries. So from that aspect, just from the electrolyte aspect, we are a bit on the safer side considering the fact that they are applied within the conventional batteries in the automotive sector right now. So this one aspect is a simple aspect that we are taking into account. And of course with the lithium metal, it's a separate story. For example, the problems which are with lithium, which are associated with lithium metal is basically dendrite short circuit. And with our lithium metal host anode, if we have if we have addressed this problem of short circuit via prevention of the dendrite formation, then of course the safety aspect is also kind of covered. So I think we are on the right path. But to be honest, on a pack level, we have not reached to that stage. But once we do, of course, at least from the chemistry point, we are trying our best to have all the problems kind of circumvented.
So at the moment you are testing on these pouch cells, right? Do you plan then to really make us these large cells? I mean, at this conference there was this one guy saying, okay, we have here the standard for stationary battery cells, and every cell in the future for stationary batteries will be probably, like, or let's say 80% of this will be like this. And this was this big prismatic format. And do you aim to go to this as well very soon, or is it something where you say, okay, go for first slowly and stay in smaller sizes?
So I think based on our roadmap, our idea is to first test the single layer pouch cells, and then of course go multi-layer with a certain area, and then we will see how this proceeds. But I think for the beginning we will stick to the pouch cells because this is a bit more easier for us. And now we have also basically commissioned our pouch cell line, so of course it's on the pouch cells. But I don't know what the future will hold, depending on the demand, depending on where the application lies. We might have to optimize what kind of format we want to use. So it depends. There are a lot of factors inside. But for testing on a larger electrode basis, then pouch cell is a bit more easier for us.
Okay. And maybe one question, because with pouch cells, the big problem is always the kind of clamping, and that you basically need to give the structural support to the cell. Is this a big problem? I heard especially for solid state batteries, when you also approach this kind of solid electrolyte, you need a lot of clamping force. And this will be probably the same for your battery, right?
So good question. This is one reason why we don't want to go all solid state.
Okay.
And we would like to remain within this quasi-solid state because it's obvious that application of high pressures is not suitable for application point of view. It's difficult, I would say.
especially if you want to be
Yes,
lightweight.
yes. So you really drastically will reduce the energy density. And for us, the mantra is high energy density.
Yeah.
So we don't want to compromise on that side. So if we stay with the quasi-solid state, then it's still possible not to have excessive pressures being applied and still get the cell cycling. So from that aspect, I think we would not focus on solid state. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, okay. Interesting point. I mean, now we are close to the end of our time. It was very interesting. Thank you for your time. Or do you have anything else to share, or what came now up into your mind and you want to get rid of it?
Nothing came to my mind, but in today's battery world, what is astonishing is that every lot of companies are claiming to have 500 watt per kg, 720 watt per kg, but nobody seems to have this product.
Yeah,
Everybody is stating, and
it's all nice presentations.
yeah, it's all nice presentation. Yeah, but I'm not sure how the industry takes it. Yeah, and this is for us, for a company, small company like us, startup like us. It puts us in a really weird position. Yeah, but if the big companies are saying like that, and we as a company are promising 1,000 watt per kg, then of course people will also question that even the big names are not able to do it. But that's why we try to be different. We want to validate everything with data, and we want to show the data. And I hope people see us as a bit different with the validations, of course, and with the data, and we try to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to then seeing some published testing data, so that will be definitely interesting.
Thank you.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Looking forward to then speaking to you at one of the other conferences.
Definitely, I think we will catch up again soon somewhere. Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
That was the second part of the interview with theion. It was really interesting to see now in these last two series really the development from the idea to the product, from the early samples to now kind of some pouch cells and the current developments. If you liked it, leave a comment, let me know, reach out. Also, if you have questions to theion directly, reach out to me and I put you in contact. And I am looking forward to seeing you next time in 2 weeks, then with a new topic. Until then.